Hi everyone, welcome to the video. So this is what we've all been waiting for. So this is part one of the Lord of Blights masterclass series. So this video is going to be all about preparation and planning. So we're not going to do any painting in this video. So you should all, if you want to take part in this, you should all have your miniature on sprue. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through this over the weeks, painting it piece by piece. It's kind of an experiment to see how we get on as well, to see if it actually works through video. I know some miniature artists, they have classes where they do this sort of thing, but I thought it might be nice for people that haven't got that accessible to them. They can join in on this, and then we can all post our pictures at the end with a hashtag, and we can all have a look at everyone's results. And hopefully we'll have some fun and learn some stuff on the way as well. So get your Lord of Blights sprue, and the first thing we're going to do is clip off the parts that we need. I don't know if you've noticed this before, but the Games Workshop products, they should be all numbered in order of assembly. So what you can do is clip them off in order number. So this is number 1, and then that goes on to number 2, and so on. And you can do that, and then you can line them up and assemble that way for all those things. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clip this off, all the pieces. So just using your clippers. So we're going to keep it basic. So when you're clipping things away, don't clip completely to the part like this. Clip just slightly away. And then you'll have a little bit of that sprue left on that piece. That allows you to clean that off then with your scalpel, with your blade. If you clip too close, sometimes it can take detail away. So if you clip just away, and then you've got your piece there ready. So we'll just clip off these parts. So you guys know what to do. And they're here, just clip them all off, get them ready for the next stage. So I'll do this, and then we'll come back. Okay, so we've got all our parts clipped off now and ready to be cleaned up. So when you're cleaning up your model, you should be using a few tools. So we've got scalpel blade, which you use, and use a file or a mold line cleaner. I use this file. This is a file I've had for so many years now. It's my trusty file, so I always use that. It's got one flat side and one slightly rounded side, so you can use it for all manner of jobs. You can also, sometimes you'll need some very fine, wet and dry, fine grade sandpaper. So this is very good for cleaning up plastic and metal miniatures and resin miniatures. So first thing we're going to do is just go around each part of the model, taking off all of the gate scars. So this is where the sprue attaches to the model. So just find those first. So they'll be the big parts that you see that hold the actual model onto the sprue. So we've got those off, and then we're going to start cleaning the mold line. So you can see there on the knee, we don't want that. We've got to get rid of that because any washes or paint or anything we put on, it's going to pick up on those. So just gently, first thing I'll do is I'll just scrape along that using the flat of the blade. Just taking that off. And sometimes that'll be just enough, that's all you need. But sometimes if you've got an awkward area, just take your file, just really gently, just rub that over the area, and that'll get rid of the entire mold line if you need to. And the wet and dry paper, that'll do the same job. If you've not got a file, you can use that. Just gently buff that area. That'll give you a really nice finish. So I'm just going to go around all of the pieces now, cleaning those mold lines off. Try not to miss any, and just be gentle. You get all those mold lines off there. So we've got a nice clean surface to paint over. So we're going to do that now. Okay, so now we've got all of our parts cleaned up, and that's always not a very fun part of the process, but you know, we've got to do it. So we've been around all the mold lines, and it's all nice and smooth now. So it's a good surface ready for painting. So what I've done now is I've just looked over the model, and I've just done a rough sort of assembly, working out which parts we want to glue now, and then which parts we want to leave off as a sub-assembly, and then glue on after painting. So I was actually just looking at the whole model. So the only things that we're going to glue to begin with are the head, the body front, and the body back. And everything else we're going to put onto props or stands, whatever you want to call them, for painting separately, because they're going to cover up detail that we want to paint, and it's going to be a lot easier for us if we paint those separately. So we're going to glue these parts together first. So I'm just going to get some plastic glue. Just using a small amount, just running around. We don't need a lot, just enough to hold the model together. I'm just going to gently press that on. So luckily with this model, this join is completely covered by detail and other areas, so we don't actually have to do any gap filling there. We do have to do a bit of gap filling up here on the shoulder pad, you can see, and just at the top there. I know a lot of people just leave those, but we're going to be painting a display high quality miniature here. Well, that's the aim anyway, so we're going to fill those. So there's a couple of ways you can do that. You can fill that with putty, let it dry and then carve it back. You can fill it with the plastic glue and then let that dry and carve it back. The method that I've come to do, which I found quite easy these days, is I've got a little old tray here, you can see, and I've got a little bit of super glue on there, and I'm just using an old wire. You can use a cocktail stick or anything, and I'm just going to dab it on and make basically a blob there. And once that's dry, we can carve that back with our scalpel or our file. So I'm just doing it around the area. You can be quite accurate with this small amount. This is going to save you waiting for putty to dry, and it's quite an easy way of covering up these small gaps. So just spread it around with a wire. Make sure it's filling those areas. And it won't take long to dry, and then we can carve that back in just a minute. And once that's drying, we'll pop the head on as well. So we've got, I think there, just maybe just a touch too much glue, so I'm just going to take a little bit off because we don't want it to ruin any detail. We need a small amount. Just pressing the head in now. So the reason I put the head on is because you can see there under his chin, he's got folds that match up with underneath his chin onto the chest, and we're going to be painting in that area. So I didn't want us to paint the head separately and then that to feel a bit separate once it was painted. So I think we can get away with painting that head on the model, so it'll feel as one piece as it should do. So yeah, so that's on there now. And then I'm just going to let that super glue dry, and then we'll carve that back in a second and get these other pieces on proper. Okay, so super glue's dry there on that gap fill there. So all that you've got to do there is either use your scalpel or just take your file and just gently file it back, and that gap will be filled for you. No worries. And it only really works for like small gaps, so bigger ones you will have to fill it with some putty or some green stuff. You get the idea. So I'll finish that in a second. But what I'm going to show you now is how I make stands and props for these parts. So I'm going to take some, so I need 4. I need to make 4. So I'm going to take 4 bases, and then I use these flying stand stems because you always end up with spare ones of these because you get extra ones in the sets. So I'll just show you how to do one. So what I do, take your flying stand and I clip off the bottom peg, and it flies off, and then just make sure that's flat because we're going to be gluing that onto the base. So just trim it flat with your blade, being careful. And then we're just going to place it we're simply just going to glue it onto one of these bases with super glue. So you're going to do 4 of those, and we'll come back in a second. Okay, so we've got all our props ready and our pieces, and this guy's been cleaned up properly now, so we've got those gaps nice and filled. So what I'm going to do first, before we go into the props, is I'm going to place this model onto a base. So I'm going to put it on a base that's smaller than the base that comes with it, and the reason for that is it allows us access around the model whilst we're painting it, and then we'll remove it from this base and put it on the display base once we get to that point. So I'm just going to glue it onto this base here, and then we can put that onto a prop a bit later. So, and when I say glue it, I mean we're going to super glue it. The reason I'm not using plastic glue is because it's going to melt these pieces together when we want to be able to just literally just snap this model with a clean break off the base once we've painted it. So I'm not using a lot of glue, so I'm just putting it on a small amount there using the wire. And I'm just going to place them onto that base there. So once it's painted, we can just take it off. Now you could use pins. You can pin it onto the base if you want to, but in this case we're just going to be taking it straight off this base once it's painted and putting it onto a larger base. So we're not going to do that. And the same with this. So we're not using any pinning. We're not pinning any of these parts on. We're just going to be using small amounts of super glue, gluing the parts onto the props, and then once they're painted, we can get a clean break, take them off, clean them up with a little bit of the scalpel work, and then they'll be fine to glue onto the model. This is one of the best ways I've found to do this sort of stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to start putting these on. So just finding a good angle for these pieces. So looking at the prop there, it looks like that's quite good. So it looks like I need to make a slight cut on the end of the prop. So if you haven't got flying stands to use, just try and use something else. Get your pieces glued to something. So I'm just carving a slight angle there at the top of the flying stand. And then check the part again. So I'm going to be gluing into the gluing surface. So this surface here is the surface that will be glued onto the model once it's finished. So that looks good to me. So it's getting a very small amount of glue on the end there. We don't need a lot. We want it to break off very easily. Some of these parts are very small, so they won't even, if you're thinking I should be pinning these pieces, they won't even stand to be pinned because they're so small. So doing this I've found better. So I'm just going to glue that into the gluing surface, so it will be hidden once it's glued on to the model. So just hold it for a little while. So that's there. So that's actually, that can be held now and painted without it causing any trouble. So I'm going to go through and glue each of these pieces onto the props using the same method. So behind the shield there, that's the gluing surface, so that'll be hidden. So we'll be carving at an angle there, allowing the shield to sit at a decent angle so we can paint that. And you can see the gluing surface there on the hangman's wooden area there. So I'll carve some of that area flat, just use a small amount of glue on there. And this one will leave an even smaller amount of glue, just a tiny dot there for the dagger. And I'll just pop it onto a prop just so we can paint it. And we can put it on at the end. So I'm going to get these on now and come back and show you these. Okay, so that's all of our parts now, all cleaned up, ready to go. The gaps are filled and they're on the props as well. So before you undercoat the model, what I like to do is obviously with the cleaning process, you create a bit of mess. So just give it a little brush over with a large soft brush just to get any of the dust off or any of the small parts that you missed. Do that on all of those pieces because there'll be a few bits in there and you don't want those getting in your undercoat. You'll notice that I'm going to put him on this prop. So this is the Citadel paint handle. Personally, I like to screw off the top piece and then just put up a bit of blue tack in there. Then you can put your model on there. You can use an old paint pot lid if you've got any of those, but get it ready on a prop once it's undercoated. So I'm going to take this off here soon, and then we're going to spray undercoat all of these parts. So if you guys want to get that ready for the next time, you can undercoat all of these pieces in Chaos Black spray. You can use grey if you want, or if you've already primed it in grey, that's fine, don't worry about that. But I'm going to be doing mine over a black undercoat, so it might be easier if you guys follow along with that. So all of those parts are ready, all of the props ready to go. So then we'll start with the painting in the next episode. What we're going to talk about next is the planning before we start painting. Okay, so now we're going to talk about planning this display piece. So what I did was I printed out a black and white picture of the Lord of Blights that we're going to be painting, and I didn't want to do a colour picture because it might distract us from our planning stage here. So we're going to paint it differently to the one that you've seen on the Games Workshop website. Just so like we're going to try something different really. So I've got my Nurgle green pen and we're going to plan our model now. So the first thing that I like to do is, let's say you're going to enter Golden Demon, or this is just for a display piece, or maybe the leader of your army or something like that. Think about the environment that the character's in. So this guy, I think he'd be really cool. I want to put him in a very cold setting. So we're going to do like a snow base, or maybe some ice on there as well. But I think that having those cold tones and giving him that sort of feel with the environment, that was going to inform the rest of the colours that we're going to put onto the model. And what we're going to do is we're going to play heavily with contrasting colours with this model. So Nurgle's great for this sort of thing. So in the past, I've painted a Nurgle Lord, which was the original plastic Nurgle Lord. So I'll put that on screen now for you, and I'll talk you through that. Okay, so here's the original Nurgle Lord that I painted a few years ago. So I think this is a good example of the sort of direction we're going to be heading with this paint job. So you can see there the skin's that sort of pale pinky skin, but we've managed to get lots of tones in there. There's some warm red tones and there's some vibrant greens in there as well, which is nice for contrast. The coppery axe there has got those verdigris that we're going to be adding onto ours. And then the green armour is that cool green armour. So we're going to do armour similar to this, and it's also got those warm tones in the pitted areas. So that's going to be really nice when we start adding that as well. And there's some cool blue elements around the model as well, on the tongue and the intestines. And then the horns as well. It's got those the nice dark, the tips, the light at the bottom with the horns. So we're going to do the same thing on ours. So we'll get back to the tutorial now and continue. So you can see from my old Nurgle Lord that I painted that there's lots of contrasting colours going on there. So I'm going to do something similar on here. It was a while ago that I painted that, so it's going to be fun to do it again. So we know we're going to be going for a sort of cool ice, snow. So we're going to be going down, that's the environment we're going to go in, so that's going to help us. So the first thing we really want to get nailed in is the skin tone. So the one that you've seen, I think it's got a green skin tone, so we're not going to do that. We're going to do pale pink skin tone. That having it pale and having it like pink in sort of in tone, in hue, is going to help us get a lot of colour into it, so we can have lots of warm tones where we want to, and around some of the extremities we can get some blue tones in there and things like that, maybe around the hands. So we've got that going on. So that's the skin. So, and then we've got all these maggots there. They're going to be lots of cool different colours. So maggots come in loads of different colours, so we can play with those at the end. So we can have something like horrible creams and blues and things. So we've got our skin. The next other large element on the model is the armour. So the pale pink is going to be warm in tone. And we want the green armour. We're going to choose green, it's Nurgle, it has to be. The green armour has got to be a cool green. So a cool green has got a lot of blue in it. So think about the old scaly green or Inky by Darkness, those sort of greens with blue in. So we're going to do a blue, green, armour, which is cool in tone. So that's that there. And that'll be on the helmet as well. So we've got warm, cold. Okay, so we've got a shield here. There's a lot of metal on that shield, and there's a metal hammer here. So these are quite large elements. So I think what we'll do those in a nice warm copper colour. You see that on a lot of the Nurgle. A lot of the Nurgle characters and a lot of the Nurgle models, So we've got the copper in there, and that will allow us. So the copper will be warm, but it's going to allow us to get cold tones in with the verdigris and the weathering. So it's going to be warm and cold. So this is going to be fine. So we've got warm and cold here. We're going to have warm and cold tones in the skin. So we've got cool armor, and that's got lots of pitting and shading in there. So we're going to add brown tones, really warm brown tones into the shading of the armor to contrast with the cool armor. So it's going to have warm tones. So we've got that working on now. So other elements on the model, so these parts of the legs, that's going to be that green color as well. So we've got green, 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 green. So it's all around the model. The skin is in the center of the model, so we don't need to worry about that too much. We've got copper, copper. This bell can be copper because we want copper here, copper up here. So we want it to go all around the model. So we're working on composition now. So this is going to be copper as well. Even if it's a small amount, that's good. So copper, copper. That one can be copper. So we already know that. Okay, so this loincloth, this might cause us a bit of trouble. So we've got green, pale pink. So this could be a neutral brown or a washed out red. So we'll do brown or red. Or red. We'll decide that later. We'll get the rest of the model going first, then we'll do that. And then we've got some straps there, we're neutral brown. We don't need to worry about those too much. So we've got cool helmet, so it's a cool green. So we're going to have warm horns here. So when I say warm horns, I mean it's going to be warm in tone, so warm brown horns. And we're going to paint those differently to this. So these go light to dark. The ones we do, they're going to go from dark to light. And the reason we're going to do that is because it's going to pull all the attention into the center of the head if you do that. Whereas at the minute, this head is sort of getting lost a little bit because it's quite dark. He's got no facial features. But if we do it light here rather than on the end, it's going to pull your attention to here. And we might come back to the head later as well and add a little bit of OSL or glow or something like that onto the helmet. But really, we're just doing broad planning to start with. Okay, so we've got all those tones going on. We don't need to worry. This spike, I think we can do that a pale copper as well. Get some tones in there. We can get some nice verdigris and weathering effects in there. So we've got some wood up here, and we've got wood on the shield. So we've got cool there, next to there. That's warm. Okay, so this wood's going to have to be neutral tone wood, so maybe quite dark. So we'll do dark wood. Dark wood. So almost black, but we'll get some wood effects in there and things like that as well. And these heads, we can play with those at the end. We don't need to worry about that just yet. The thing with these heads is because they're so close to his head, they could pull all the attention away from what is the focus of the miniature, which is this part of the miniature. So we're going to go back to those a little bit later. So we're not going to make them too vibrant or strong or anything like that. Now, the challenge with this miniature when we're painting it is the first thing we should look at, or anybody you hand it to, the first thing they should look at is the head. But the head's covered up, so we've got to work really hard to keep the focus around here. So we're going to be playing with lots of little tricks and little warm tones and cool tones just to try and pull the focus into the head. Yes, I think that's everything. We'll do the base at the end. We know that's going to be cool, so we'll try and make him feel a bit cold, a little bit frostbitten. And I think that that's our planning done. So with that done, it allows us to go into the miniature with confidence and get started next week. So get your models, get them undercoated black, get them ready, get them all on props. And I think next week we're going to start with the skin because we're going to work on the model inside out. So the skin is the inside, and then we'll work on the layers outwards as we go through. And hopefully we'll get to the end of the model and we'll all have something that's worth looking at the end. All right, guys, so sorry there was no painting in this video, but it's all about planning and preparation, which is really important. And I'll see you in the next part of this tutorial. Cheers, bye.